Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are just so glad that you are here today. My name is Kylie Heap, and I serve as Executive Director of Support After Abortion. Today, we're going to dive into something that I genuinely love talking about, how we use activities to build real connection, whether that's in a group or a one-on-one setting, it will work for you. I'm going to begin with who's leading the conversation, and that's Michelle Maslin. She's our Communications Manager. Michelle brings both professional expertise and real personal compassion to this work, and it's shaped in part by her own experience with reproductive loss. She'll be joined by Karen Barbito, our healing support specialist. Karen is a seasoned facilitator. Her work with clients and coaching providers draws on her own healing after abortion and the life challenges that she has faced, including addiction and codependency and homelessness. You'll also hear from Niles. Niles Pinkney is our men's healing coordinator. Niles equips providers and facilitates virtual healing groups, paying forward his own healing after abortion. We're also honored to have three guest facilitators joining us today, all of them highly experienced, and all of them people who actually use activities in their healing groups, which is exactly what we're here to talk about. Sylvia Blakely is the founder and lead mentor of Arise Daughter After Abortion Mentoring Ministry and longtime Support After Abortion network provider. She is also a certified trauma art facilitator. Is that not cool? Sue Ketchum has mentored one-on-one and facilitated healing groups for after abortion, unraveled roots, overcoming sexual abuse, hope after reproductive loss, and conquering codependency. And last but not least, Jess Lane is the founder and director of advancement for Restored Nation. It's a ministry that supports women and men who have experienced abortion, miscarriage, single parenting, and more. She is a licensed and ordained minister, associate pastor. Among other things, she and her husband, Dan, regularly facilitate Unraveled Roots in their church. And Jess also leads Keys to Hope and Healing and a Bible study abortion healing program. So with that, I'll hand it over to Michelle to get us started.
Thank you so much, Kylie. And thank you to our guests, Sylvia, Sue, and Jess. They actually provided, along with a couple other facilitators, feedback on the first draft of this new resource we are so excited to share with you today, the activity guide for facilitators walking together through abortion healing. Their insights and experiences were so valuable, and I'm just really glad they're here to speak firsthand to you and share how they use activities and how activities benefit their clients. We are going to be showing previews of the new activity guide throughout the presentation, and we'll intersperse that with stories from facilitators. We're going to start out with a little activity for all of us. Karen, can you lead us?
Sure, thanks. So I want everybody that's in this webinar, would you please put in the chat the one word that describes how you're arriving to this meeting today emotionally? Margaret, if you could put that question in the chat as well. Thank you. You've already done that. Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to do that. Then we're going to call out a few of those so that we can see how, common some emotions are when we arrive to something like this. Wow, we got a lot. There's a lot of participation. Oh my gosh, I got to go back. Okay. Confident, calm, curious, fatigued and tired, scared, interested, rushed, praying, excited. I just love that. So let's talk about activities like this and how it helps participants arrive and settle in without the pressure of having to share deeply or honestly right away when you get into a group or facilitating or anything like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. By taking just that little moment for one word, you can actually help everyone do three things, really. They're externalizing an emotion. We feel it moving from inside to our body to the screen, making it maybe a little easier to name or handle. We normalize the experience. Seeing other words in the chat can help participants realize we're not the only one arriving with certain feelings or complex feelings. and it can settle the nervous system. It's like a gentle reset that signals to the brain that we don't have to carry the whole rest of our day right now. We can be present here. So thanks, Karen, for leading us. And thank you, everyone, for participating in that little micro activity. We're going to try something a little different today with the chat. As we move through the webinar, we're going to use the chat at times as a shared learning space. So Margaret will occasionally drop a question in for you that has something to do with what we've talked about. Feel free to share reflections, examples, practical insights along the way. It's kind of a way to become interactive with the presentation. We may not comment on the chat, but when you share, it can help others who are reading the chat, and it can also help us enrich the written recap that you'll receive next week. Now, some of you may want to share something, but prefer not to chat while you're also listening. So when you get to the survey that we offer at the end, one of the final questions in the survey is there anything else you'd like to share? Feel free to use that as a space so that if you'd rather stay fully engaged in listening and not participate in the chat, you can still add things that perhaps could be developed as part of the recap. All right, let's get started. So first question, what do we mean by activities? Activities are structured exercises that help participants process emotions, reflect on their experiences, express themselves, and engage with others in a safe and supportive way. The activities in the guide we're going to share with you give you practical tools that you can use with any program, whether you use a formal curriculum, adapt material on your own, or simply hold space for someone to talk. Activities offer pathways to healing that can engage the mind, body, heart, and spirit. They can help make the healing process more concrete, personal, memorable. For example, creativity, like art, music, movement, storytelling, those activate different parts of the brain and can help emotions surface and release. And group activities can build a sense of belonging and connection. They can reduce shame. They can increase confidence. Symbolic expressions can help process loss and move through the grieving process. What you're seeing here is a double-page spread from the new handbook. And you'll see a quick note there about client-centered and trauma-informed care during activities. It's always okay for participants to pass. So we want to be flexible. It can help to choose activities that match where your participants are in their healing journey and approach activities with sensitivity, pacing, and respect for your client's boundaries. For those of you who like to dive deeper, the activity guide includes a section in the back that's called Evidence Behind Activities, and you can click on any of those resources and read further. This activity guide for facilitators is very robust. It's almost 140 pages of content. There are 73 activities organized by 11 healing themes, like opening up and building trust, naming the loss, exploring emotions, letting go of guilt and shame, dealing with regret and what ifs, forgiveness, memorial and symbolic expression, moving forward and next steps, as well as anytime, grounding, and nature-based healing. You'll also see there is an appendix that you will really love. It's called Printable Handouts. So every time an activity, I won't say every time, many times when an activity calls for some handout or tool, we've provided that for you so you can just print it out and use it. And then there's also an index at the back that groups the activities by type. Like if you want to look for an art activity or you want to look for a writing activity, you can go to that. Now we are going to take a deeper look at certain theme sections, give you a look at some of the pages and bring our guests into conversations about how they use these and give you a fuller flavor for the resource and how you can use it. So we're going to start with the naming loss section. that can help clients process complex feelings and situations. The activities in this section create space so that participants can give language, symbol, or story to their abortion experiences and can bring dignity to what may have been hidden and open the door to authentic grieving. We're going to start with an activity that is called the influence pie chart. You'll see that each activity listed in the guide shows the purpose, the materials needed. And for many, as I said, if a handout is helpful, we have that in the appendix. It estimates a time that it takes to complete the activity, gives step-by-step instructions, offers reflection questions, and adaptations for use in virtual settings, one-on-one, and faith. So Jess, I'm going to ask you to share how you use this activity in your groups and how you've seen it help clients.
Yeah, you bet. I would love to do that. So we tend to couple this tool with, we have this ready for when our clients are sharing their testimony. So when they're sitting and they're sharing with us what they've experienced and who was involved, and they're just doing it very naturally and organically, we're kind of taking note to what we're hearing. We're hearing, names and situations and things like that, and we're kind of making a list just to be helpful to them later. Then when we introduce this concept, we share that list with them. So they might have said some names that they wouldn't normally think might have had influence or accountability. So we really try to keep track of that as leaders and share that with them. And then we explain, just like the booklet instructions say, think about their experience, make a list of everybody that knew that they were pregnant, and compare that list to the names that your leader gave you, and then pray and ask God to show you, and this would be in our biblical groups, pray and ask God to show you who had influence or accountability. We're not blame shifting, we're not doing that at all, but as we all know, a lot goes into a decision like this oftentimes. And I know for me, my particular group that I did for healing didn't actually do this process. I learned this when I became a facilitator and later did it for myself and received a lot of healing because I was walking around shouldering all the influence and all the responsibility when actually I had some hidden anger and some other things going on inside of me because of the people involved in my situation. And it was so helpful to sit down and put names to paper and then think about, okay, what percentage do I put on myself really? How much do I put on the father of the baby? What about the clinic or anyone else that was on my list? And that was really helpful for me, really freeing. And I've seen this be so helpful for clients over and over as they kind of take a look at, okay, what was my situation and what did this look like? And so that's a big way that we've used this tool in the past.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jess. I know I've heard from other people. Karen was the one who suggested we include this in the book. And so I know that this one is very impactful for clients. Jess, you told me about how you pair that influence pie chart activity with the timeline mapping and angry letters. Could you tell us a little bit about why you do that and how that benefits your clients?
Yes, absolutely. So our pie of influence or pie of accountability is a partner to our anger letters. And so anyone that makes it in the pie, that those individuals or places or things, so we've had people write letters to places and things like that, they are going to write an anger letter to that person, place, or thing. And so that is an amazing tool. I have personally used that in situations where I feel really stuck with the topic of forgiveness. I always start with an anger letter and then move into a forgiveness letter after that, which I know we're not talking about that right now, but that is a big, huge tool. And then the mapping, I really like the mapping because we want to get across to these gals or men that their story really matters. And that's something that we try to communicate through this. And so we ask them to focus on birth to age 20. That's just how we do it in our groups. And we ask them questions like, what was life like before the abortion? And when did the abortion happen? And who spoke into the decision? And we try to ask some questions, where did the abortion happen? Trying to bring up ideas about that. But also maybe for me, I was 9, my parents got divorced. So there were some things that started then for me on my timeline that helped me see, okay, there, I needed to look at that, and so maybe that wasn't a direct influence, but it definitely had influence over where my mind was at that time when that decision took place. So we're a big fan of the mapping, and then those anger letters are a huge tool and partner to the influence pie.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jess. It's really fantastic to hear how how people like you and the other guests who will speak use the activities, and especially how they impact clients. Let's look at our biggest section in the guide, because emotion work is such a central part of abortion healing. This section does have the most activities. Sue uses a number of activities to help explore emotions, like letters and the empty chair, which is in the book. One that I found intriguing, Sue, could you talk a little about the anger bags and rocks that you told me about?
Oh, sure. Yeah, thanks. I like to call them the rock sock because they're just, I buy little socks. And if it's in person, when we meet, all the rocks, little stones, big stones, different colors, different textures are sitting out in front of them. And as we use the influence pie and consider our list of people and places that influenced us, also the church, the media, those people are on our list too. So we look at what's in front of us, look at the stones, and I have each woman pick up a stone, put it in their sock. And then I ask them then to explain to the rest of the group, why did you choose this particular one? And it's really it's very interesting to hear them that they've just reflecting on, well, this is just a color, the color black and what it means to me. And just, this was the doctor. Or white. White was the church. They were supposed to be there, but look at the little flecks of black in there, because they really weren't there for me. I couldn't go to the church. And the boyfriends are different shapes and colors, those that pressured and influenced. So those are the rocks that go in the socks. And then for that week, we tie them with a bow. I send them on the way for the week, and we tell them to carry this with you in your pocket, in your purse. Feel the weight of it all day long for 7 days until we return again. I had a gal who wore hoodies all the time. She put it in her hoodie. She said, I felt it. I felt that weight. And so when they come back, it's usually the next chapter of forgiveness and it's that letting go of the burden of carrying around that anger. And so it's just a powerful physical feeling of letting go. And I tell them, if you're not ready to let go of one of those rocks, carry it with you another week. And they do sometimes, and then finally release them toward the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sue. I love that. And I do believe, tying into what you said, I think it's in the forgiveness section that we do have a carrying something heavy activity.
Mm.
After talking about emotions, the next section that I want to mention to you is grounding and regulation. It offers a variety of activities that are perfect for lowering the intensity that can surface during healing sessions, especially when emotions have been front and center. They can help calm the amygdala response when participants feel flooded or shut down. It can help them feel steadier and safe to continue. We've shared some of these in previous webinars, things like noticing 5 things you see, 4 things you feel, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste. Others in this section may be new to you, like visualizing a safe space maybe. We encourage you to explore the grounding options when you get your copy of the activity guide. Aside from searching by themes, I did mention earlier that the index lets you search by type of activity. And this is a quick glance at the index. We're going to zoom in on the creative, artistic, and music activities. I'd like to invite Sylvia to talk about how powerful music can be and how she uses it and how clients benefit. So, Sylvia?
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you for that question. I know for me personally, music absolutely ministers to my soul. And I find that oftentimes when I'm hurting, that's exactly the part of me that feels it the most. And so I find that music can release my thoughts from the negative loops that tend to set up in our brain. And they run in our head so often that oftentimes we don't even notice them. But music is an opportunity for us to break that loop. We use music in several different ways. One of the ways we use music is for contemplative exercises, things like prayer or journaling. So we'll use something called soaking music, and literally you can look this up on YouTube. And we allow that to play in the background while people are doing that type of contemplative work where no words are really needed at that point. They just need to be able to be. And then another way we use music, we choose specific songs at the beginning and at the end of our sessions that may speak to the theme of that particular section. So oftentimes when clients start with a song, again, they can disconnect from that negative loop that they may have come into the classroom with. But then they also allow a door to be opened, I feel like, to specific healing that they might not even know yet that they're going to receive that session. So music for us is a real, I think it's a real special way to co-regulate together as a group, and also during the week to self-regulate when you need to break that negative loop in your head. Music is just wonderful as a balm.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sylvia. I also just love music, and I often will find a song that it's just resonating with me, and I might have that song on loop for a week or so. And sometimes you might see those come out in a blog where it'll say, oh, something about a particular song, because that just really songs can just get to you in a way that maybe words or reading don't. And that's why music is such a key feature in the Finding Solid Ground, A Man's Guide to Healing After Abortion video series that accompanies men through the book. So Niles, I'd like to invite you to share some of the solid feedback that you've received from men about the Finding Solid Ground movement. I remember when we were looking to add music to that program, hearing a few people saying, men and music, I don't know that would go, but it really does. And so Niles, can you share with us about that?
Of course, Michelle. So, like you said, I had some meaningful feedback from men about the music that I was in Finding Solid Ground. And there's actually one man in the group that shared that the music helped him cross emotions and access them he didn't even realize he was carrying at the time and throughout his journey. He felt that it gave him permission to feel without having the right words at the time because he was about a year, 18 months, as he said, into his journey. So he still was figuring everything out, as he said. So the music allowed him to create some space where he can slow down and reflect. As well, he felt like it was a place for him where he could feel no pressure not to talk right away. I've also had a man reach out to me on my after abortion line who stated he was fresh in his abortion experience. He was maybe a week, and he wasn't ready for a program, group, one-on-one, or even our self-guided resources. But when I mentioned music, his voice lightened, and I can hear maybe that would be something that he was interested in. So it became a gentle entry point for him, and it met him where he was and allowed him to begin engaging in his healing journey with only maybe a week and a week and a half out because I spoke to him again. He sounded more uplifted and just more joyful.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Niles. We have several creative and artistic options in the guide. Sylvia and Niles talked about music. We're going to talk a little about creativity. And I just want to remind you, we are having an activity lab on April 1st that we encourage you to come to, where you'll get to be like a participant and we'll facilitate some activities. Sylvia is going to lead an art activity that demonstrates how creativity can support reflection, expression, and deeper emotional processing. And I'm really looking forward to that. Today, Sylvia, could you share with us in general why you use art in healing groups, and then tell us about the butterfly transformation activity?
Mhm. Well, thank you, Michelle, for that question, because again, starting with my own experience, art became a very integral part really early of the ministry. And so when I saw other people also drawn to art and using art as, again, a way to kind of self regulate their emotional systems, we embraced it super early. And what we were finding was that art exercises really help us take our executive brain offline for a minute. It sort of like hijacks all of the overthinking that can happen. And it allows us to connect to that amygdala, which you mentioned just a minute ago, which is where a lot of our deep seated emotions sit. And specifically, our trauma response emotions can sit. So, art can give the amygdala a really safe space and free reign to express what clients are feeling, again, without any specific words or any specific agenda. For women acutely traumatized, say from a recent abortion, we're finding that really simple art exercises like doodling really allow them again to take that executive brain offline and just express themselves without any particular agenda or any particular pressure. So we use art quite frequently, again, throughout each chapter. There are art exercises that they can do in group and also by themselves. So it works really well. The butterfly transformation is a really unique exercise, and that allows us to really essentially look at a journey, and we call it the from to journey. So it emphasizes how God can transform our healing journey from where we are to where we could potentially be. And I know you've got that example up, which is great. And I will quickly show my camera.
Love it.
This was actually done in response for facilitators who were feeling an imposter syndrome. So we used this as an exercise and it worked really, really well. You can start with words on one side of the butterfly. Say, for example, oftentimes we're in survival mode, right? I saw some words like we were rushed to get here, feeling overwhelmed. And that's very common. You can start there with any word or emotion that feels right to you about where you are. And then what we do is we have clients look at the antonym of that word. So you don't really have to even think much. You can just go, to your thesaurus and find an antonym for that word and put it on the opposite side of the butterfly. And that again allows you to sort of have this image or dream about where your transformation is taking you to. So I feel like it helps people to become unstuck from where they are and again to have a vision, to have a vision about where their healing can take them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sylvia. As you all have likely noticed, at the bottom part of each activity is the yellow adaptations box. And every activity offers those, including for faith, which is how Sylvia uses it. And the core activity can be led by any group. In this case, you could invite participants to envision what healing and hope and transformation could look like for them. Thank you again, Sylvia. One of the creative projects in the guide is making memory collages. We even offer a link to a Canva template for those whose clients may want to make a digital collage. Jess told me about how she uses memory collage projects, old school, with magazine clippings. Can you tell us about that and how your clients respond, Jess?
Yeah, you bet. That's probably one of our favorite processes. Not everyone that comes to group is, quote unquote, an artist or enjoys art projects. So it's one of the reasons why I am an artist, so I do, but most don't always. I do like it because you don't have to have any skill whatsoever to do a collage when you use magazines. So it is exactly what you said, old school. We just set up tables, we put out magazines, glue sticks and scissors and garbage cans, and then we ask the participants to sort of try to encapsulate what it's felt like, what it's been like to have this abortion in their past, or something that's a part of their life, and get a picture of that. So it comes out a little bit different for every single person on how they're processing that, but we're just trying to take a snapshot almost of how they're feeling in that moment. And this we do at the very beginning of group. So the way we start our faith group is we do 2 days back to back, and so in that second day we have the ladies sit together, and it's one of the ways two things are happening. They're becoming fast friends, which we really love, have projects that help them kind of get bonded quickly. And we just let them kind of sit and have, 30 minutes or maybe 40 to work on that project. And then we take it from them. We write their name on the back, we take it from them, and we lock it up in our filing cabinets. And they don't see it again until the very, very end. So we go through all the rest of the sessions, eight or seven or eight sessions. And then at the last session, I think it's like second to last, actually, we'll kind of repeat that process. So now we have them sit together and again create how they're feeling. How are they feeling now that they've gone through session, they've processed emotions, they've done the homework, they've read the scriptures, all that, and create their collage. And then we have them present both to us in group. And it is absolutely mind-blowing every single time. Oftentimes what we notice is on the first collage that they've created, they'll have maybe something dark or sad or, I don't know, lifeless in the middle, let's say, or in the top left. And then on the new one, in the middle or the top left, they've got a baby or a flower or water or something that really represents light and life and maybe even the Holy Spirit to some degree. I mean, it's miraculous how they subconsciously replace what they had done previously without even, I mean, most of them don't even remember that we did it in the beginning because they've been processing so many emotions. And so it's really, really powerful. And then we as leaders will just call those things out and help them see, look at what you've exchanged. Like you've exchanged this for that. And it's powerful. They actually just can't believe it that they've done that. And so it's one of my favorite tools. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Jess. Sue, you told me about an activity you do. It is not in our guide, but I absolutely love it. Would you share a little bit about making kintsugi bowls?
Sure, absolutely. This has just been a wonderful thing that really has impacted the women, and it's about wholeness and the healing journey and how art reflects life. And I have a show and tell too, like Sylvia. So this is one of my bowls, and you can see inside and out. This is Japanese art of repair. And the bowl, what we do is take a whole bowl, and put it in a bag, hit it with a hammer, and we see all the pieces. And then rather than quickly put them all together right away, we reflect on the pieces, understand why it was broken, the shape of it. This is the time to be still and to really look and see the fragments of our life. And then healing, the glue is the connection. It's not the perfection, but it's done in group, it's done in community. And so sometimes you need help and you need somebody to hold your pieces together while you're gluing that golden glue into the cracks. And then you're holding it until it sets. And then the next stage is, after it dries, is filing. And we take that filing to all the rough edges, and the rough edges get smoothed down. And then at the end, what you have is just this beautiful piece of art. And it's the repaired pain to purpose. There's a new purpose. It has the vessel now can be used for other things. It's not broken. And we like to say that sometimes wholeness resides in the very cracks and crevices where we thought hope was lost. So it just becomes a powerful tool. And I love giving them things that they can take home with them, the keepsakes that we don't have, because we don't have the keepsakes of a child, but we can have it through our healing process. We have something to hold on to.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Sue. Really appreciate you sharing that.
I can just also just add that when COVID happened and everything went virtual and all my groups are online, I now have, I created a slideshow showing all the process of making the bowls and, scripting it. And that has even become powerful. Even online, we can talk about the repair.
Oh, that's fantastic. Sue, I'm going to take a moment to ask you, since you just talked about the difference between in-person and virtual. I know you said that when you did in-person groups, you have like a I would call a suitcase, might not be that big, but a bag
Yeah.
of activities that you take. And then you mentioned a couple of things that you do differently in virtual. Could you just like share a couple of those?
Well, for virtual groups, I'm the handout queen, like when I'm when you're in person, I'll hand out different things, but mailing ahead of time for a week, knowing it's coming up. I actually have a packet and I'll put it in envelopes on the inside, week 3, week 4, week 5, do not open until your leader tells you to. But inside will be something that they can use online. Just let me just take one of the units of sometimes I really spend a lot of time on shame, and what they have in their little envelope. I tell them to open it up, and I've also told them to bring a bowl of water to your table before we meet. And when they open up their envelope, inside is a little piece of paper. They don't know what kind of paper it is, but it's Dissolvo paper. It's rice paper. And I've had them write down all the negative things that they would think about themselves, all the shameful things that they believe. And once that's filled out, and I'm playing the soaking music in the background during that time, then I tell them that you can let this go, and you can give this to God, lay it at the foot of the cross. And in this moment, and I'm playing music at the same time, I am telling them to put this little piece of paper now into their bowl, give it a little stir, and I don't say another word, because what happens is that paper will absolutely disappear. They will not see anything at all in their bowl. And and when it's online like that, just to watch them, I give them time to weep. I don't interrupt emotion. I think it's powerful to sit in it. So, yeah, that's just one little example of virtual.
Thank you, Sue. I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, so mailing ahead, emailing, giving an materials list ahead of time, have, like she said, have the bowl of water with you. And I was so happy that you told me about, I didn't know about Dissolvo, but y'all will find that in parts of the guide where it suggests that you could use Dissolvo and how to do that. Thank you again, Sue, for sharing that powerful experience. The guide also includes, I think it's about 18 writing and reflection activities. One was mentioned earlier, the angry letter that Jess uses. Karen, could you tell us just a short bit about writing, how writing helps clients, and talk just a bit about writing a letter to your child or your children that have been lost to abortion?
Yeah, I think that's really effective because people are in different places when they think about their child that's not there, right? And so there's no set way that it needs to look or sound, right? Some people are apologizing to their children, other people are saying things that have been left unsaid. If I could, like whatever that looks like for them. And they can either rip it up afterwards or they can keep it. And as they progress along on their journey, they can go back and read it and update it, right? They can update it to how they feel about or what they want to say to their child now. And that just solidifies progress, right? People sometimes aren't aware of how far they've really come from where they started and where they are now. And little reminders of that I think are very effective.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Karen. Hey, Niles, I'm going to ask you to jump in here because, a lot of people think men don't like to write. And I know you've spoken about journaling. So could you just share briefly about the value of writing with men?
Of course, thank you, Michelle. And kind of go based off what you said, a lot of people don't always think of men as journalers, as you could say. But for me personally, writing has been a way for me to get thoughts out of my head and actually see what I'm carrying. I like to use the freehand style, which is just write everything I'm thinking and feeling and just going on. And then after I'll read it and break it down. And it helps to slow things down for me and bring clarity to emotions that are hard to name for me or just emotions that can be described in many ways. And then me, I like to talk to my guy friends, just learn what they have going on. So they've shared similar things, and I've heard through other similar things through men I've talked to at conferences and meeting other facilitators and things like that. But even writing or recording their thoughts gives them a sense of privacy, a pressure-free space for them to grieve, and then a lot of men anger, and then they also just if they have any confusion, is able to put it on the paper and read it out and figure out and sift through it that way. And I had a man from our Finding Solid Ground group, and he said the strength of the activities created room for him to engage differently as well. So he wrote a little bit before, but the activities that were in there just even added more and it helped him develop even more depth and his own style. And in my time as well, just talking to my friends, like I mentioned before, and learning from them, I had a friend that said freehand really wasn't for him, but more of a Venn diagram. And at first, I was like, how do you even do that? But he explained it, and it was a great way for him to work through his thoughts. So it also brought a thought process of how writing can be flexible, and writing doesn't have to just look one way for everyone.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Niles. Love the Venn diagram. In addition to nature-themed activities that are in the book that share how you could bring nature into your group or your one-on-one, the activity guide highlights our nature-based healing resource, which is written directly to individuals struggling after abortion. And in our activity guide, we include this double-page spread here, which includes how you could adapt that to use it in groups and one-on-one. And Jess, I'd love for you to share how you use this nature-based healing resource and what you've heard from clients about it.
Yes. So you guys had originally put out the challenge, and I grabbed that because doing Keys to Hope and Healing, I do all of those virtual, and I thought, oh, this could be really a neat thing to share with the clients because I'm not with them, and so I would love to give them some ideas about ways that they can, regulate their emotions when we're not able to go meet up with them, or like we can when we do our in-person groups. And so I had done that in one of our groups and just had some gals that were having a really, really hard time. And one of them, she actually invited a couple of friends with her, and she went and did some of the suggestions on the challenge, and she just came back the next week and reported how powerful it was to be with her friends, to share the truth about her decision that she had made, to process her emotions in nature, and that she probably wouldn't have done that on her own. Like she wouldn't have thought about doing that. And we've recently shared it again with the current group that we just finished yesterday. And she's like, I love nature, and I haven't been able to get out because of where they live. I know there's a lot of places that still have snow and stuff, but she's like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to go and do this when there's no snow. So anyway, we think it's really neat. I'm excited for the new booklet to try to help folks think differently about places that they can go to experience deeper healing away from maybe their home or, where they've been trying to seek healing. So we love it. Absolutely love it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. So what Jess had mentioned in the challenge is in the middle of the screen in the blue, you'll see it looks like a bingo square. And that's we originally, as part of a webinar, might even be 2 years ago, we had come up with this nature-based healing challenge where you do 5 activities in 5 weeks. So 1 activity a week for 5 weeks. And there's this bingo card, and the left image there shows you what one of the pages looks like for across the row of the challenge. Each activity has a reflection. So it describes the activity and has a reflection that people can do on their own. And then we developed that further from the handout that we gave in the webinar, which Jess was mentioning, to this 24-page booklet. And we have experiences that are stories that people went and took those activities and went out into nature and reflected and then shared that experience with us. So it's a really great resource. And it was exciting to hear how you've used it in your groups, Jess. So many of you already do beautiful memorial practices to help clients honor their children. And these expressions bring comfort and meaning, and they're often a very powerful part of healing after abortion. The activity guide includes several activities that you can use with your clients, and it also links to one of our blog articles that could be helpful for you and your clients. I'm going to give you a lightning look at a couple of more things and see if we have a chance to get to a few questions here. I wish I could show you the entire book, at least all of the sections, but we are nearing the end of our time together. So this last section I want to share today is called Moving Forward and Next Steps, and gives you numerous activity ideas. One of them is affirmation activities, and both Sue and Jess mentioned using these and how impactful they can be for participants to receive these words from each other. Jess, you called it verbal bouquets. Can you just give me a lightning look at what that looks like for you all?
Yes. So by the end of group, everybody has really been connected. So we just say, you don't have to buy anything, just grab a card and write down the words for each person that's in group that, how have they impacted you? I'm so glad you were in group. I saw you grow. It was so powerful for me. Thank you for sharing this and that. And so it's just like a shower of words of love for each person. And so if we've got 8 people in a group, including the leaders, then each person's going to have 7 people speaking these beautiful, loving words over them. It is powerful. And we put a little crown on them before we start. That's sort of my tradition. And it's a really powerful time. Very, very worth doing.
Great. Thank you, Jess. We do not have a lot of time for questions. We've had such a fantastic conversation. Margaret, is there something that we could maybe address before we do our wrap up?
Yeah, I had a question come in for Niles. Do activities work with men?
Great. Niles, could you speak to that?
Oh, of course. So that's actually a great question, Margaret, because a lot would be like, men, activities don't go together. Well, with activities for men, it can actually create a space of making them simple and low pressure. One that I've seen personally is a group of men, and it may sound silly at first, but they name different emotions. And if a guy in the room or anyone else has related to this emotion very deeply or even feeling it in that moment, someone raises their hand. And then it can give everyone an immediate sense of, I'm not the only one, which helps others open up, express themselves, speak up, and feel like the room, instead of everyone feel like strangers, as men may do, we feel like it's a team and we're together. Another thing I've heard from other male facilitators, like Jess's husband, Dan, is that he uses the timeline mapping. He uses a feelings wheel, which helps men move beyond mad or sad or certain things that they may feel are uncomfortable saying. And one word check-ins, it builds consistency and trust.
Thanks, Niles. Yeah, I remember talking to Dan and he was sharing those different activities that he used. He also said that, men might not be up for doing art or something like that, but you get a feel for your group and the people, whether you're leading a group of women or a group of men, you'll get a feel for what they might be open to exploring. Margaret, do we have maybe a really quick question?
I don't know about quick. What if clients resist or don't want to do an activity?
That is a great question.
I'll be happy to answer that. I mean, we talked about it in this presentation that, the client's the one that gets to decide, right? We gotta offer trauma-informed and client-centered care, right? So, I mean, to try to force somebody to do something that they're not comfortable with, I think it's going to have a negative effect, not a positive one.
Awesome. Perfect answer, Karen. Thank you for jumping in. We are so glad you were here with us today, and we will see you soon.